say things like the Lawn Boys chain and position room nicknames like the Wild Dog bring those position rooms together around their coaches? And two, why didn't you bring the disco ball to Maryland?
So a couple things. I think we've had the names. That's been something that's gone on for a long time. Position coaches, obviously Sean's the one that everybody is probably most aware of. But each kind of position has it. It's something that players and coaches come up with together. Obviously the Lawn Boys, the running back, those guys eating up grass and eating up yardage is something they came up with before the season just to have fun with it, talk about their role and responsibility within the team parameters, and then having some personality and have some fun with it. So, we've had the Wild Dogs from day one and Sean's dog bone. But they all seem to have it, and they're having fun with it. And for me, I like anything. There's a fine line with it, but ultimately for me, I want to make sure that we're playing a brand of football that people can really respect, and a brand of football that our fans and our lettermen and our community can feel good about how our guys conduct themselves on the sideline, how they conduct themselves during the game, how they play from a discipline standpoint, how they are in the classroom, how they are in the community. Those are the things that really matter. And then I think you gotta allow them to have a little personality and some other things as well, and kind of embrace that. It's no different than as a dad of my two daughters. I can't fight every battle, and I want my daughters to kind of have some personality and their own strengths and figure out their weaknesses as well. And it's the same thing with our team. But ultimately, I'm concerned about how our guys are in the classroom, how they are in the community, and then the style of play and how we conduct ourselves on the field, representing our fan base and representing this community. So a little personality, that may be different here, I'm good with.
California has passed the Fair Play to Play Act, which has drawn a lot of support from current and former college athletes around the country. Do you believe this act is good or bad for college sports? And would you like to see Pennsylvania and other states follow with similar legislation?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot going on about this right now. And obviously our administration here at Penn State, as well as the Big Ten Conference, is all following this closely. And we're going to have to continue to follow it closely. And we're going to have to learn, and we're going to have to evolve. So, I think everybody is very aware of it, and we'll continue to track it and obviously come up with some plans that are specific to Penn State, as well as plans for the Big Ten Conference. So, there's a window of time that we got to get it done in, but there's no doubt there's a lot of people working on it right now.
I've had a lot of fans ask about how much impact or how much Penn State's going to get to look over, I guess, what HBO is doing this week. ESPN did Alabama. ESPN has under restrictions. HBO doesn't have any of that stuff. Do you get to look at this before it goes up? Is Penn State Athletics looking at it before it goes up?
I'm not obviously going to spend a whole lot of time. We're going to keep our process and focus on the things that we can do. But yeah, without getting into the details of our contract and things like that, obviously Penn State wouldn't agree to do something like this if we weren't completely comfortable with all the details and specifics of it. So that was thoroughly vetted on the front end, and have had great discussions, and so far they've been great partners. So, but yeah, I think Penn State, we're fairly conservative, and we're going to be very diligent on the front end of looking at those things. Yeah, I think there's going to be some hard knocks aspects of this. I don't know if it's going to be as colorful, but yeah, I do think there's a fine line, because it does allow you to tell the story and be really authentic, So, but there's a fine line to that.
I wanted to ask you about the challenge of coaching and playing aggressive defense with the way that targeting is being called. It just seems like it's more prevalent this year. I think there were a couple instances in the Maryland game. And how do you think Micah maybe came out of that? Do you think he'll benefit from having learned some things, or no?
I think it's a pretty good example of really tying together what we just talked about. We spent a lot of time talking about fundamentals of the game, not only because they're the ways that you're going to be the most successful play in the game, but also because we are so concerned about our players' health and safety, and also the guys we play against, their health and safety. I mean, part of the reason that targeting is a penalty now is because it puts them and the person they're hitting at risk. So we spend a ridiculous amount of time talking about that. But back to your point, what happened when Micah Parsons was ejected? He put his head down, he was upset, put his helmet on, ran off the field, went into the locker room. Wasn't in the stands pumping the fans up that you see sometimes, wasn't slamming his helmet and screaming. I thought that was a really good example. You got Micah Parsons, who cares as much as anybody in our program about Penn State's success, and he was disappointed, but handled it the right way, owned up to it, ran off the field. I will tell you, Neil, something he did do that I wasn't happy with. He went in the locker room and tweeted. Now, that was addressed with our entire team, but again, what did he tweet? Something really positive about the team, and my boys are out there holding it down. I don't want the tweeting, during the game, but again, I just think it's an example of how Micah handled the adversity, running off the field and doing it with class, and then going to the locker room, and I will say there's a lot of talk about changing that rule, that you won't send a guy in the locker room because now it puts him in a tough situation, just sitting in a locker room by himself for an hour and a half, and we create a spectacle by sending him off the field. Just take his helmet and leave him on the sideline. So I think you'll see some of those changes maybe coming in football, but it kind of ties, both your things together. So, and again, I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I got 121 18 to 22-year-old males. We don't always handle things perfectly. We make mistakes, but overall, the 6 years that we've been here, I couldn't be more proud of how our guys have handled things.
Hey, the Purdue defense, how do they go about creating the pressure? I think they have like 11 sacks in 4 games. How do they go about creating that pressure? And secondly, what do you guys have to do this week to keep Sean upright?
Well, I think a couple things. I think, they do a really good job with their blitz and twist package. And then I think they also do a really good job of having weekly blitzes and twists to try to challenge your protections in what you do. And that's always kind of the chess match as the offensive coordinator and O-line coach is identifying what they do on film. What are the tells to determine where the pressure's coming from, whether it's the shade or the 3 technique, or whether it's the skew of the linebackers, or whether it's the rotation of the safeties, or whatever it may be that week. That is the tell. And then you set your protection based on that. And then obviously let's figure out as soon as we possibly can what's the blitz or the pressures of the week that we haven't seen before. And what you hope is your normal rules handle them, but if not, then you have to make those adjustments on the sideline quickly. And I thought that's one of the things I think Sean did such a good job. I thought Sean was so confident pre-snap in what the coverage was going to be. He was so confident pre-snap in what the blitz was going to be that's when people talk about the game slowing down. It's because you've anticipated what they're going to do, and you're not trying to figure it all out after the ball snapped. You can anticipate it. And we need to continue to be able to do that. And there's going to be weeks where, based on film study and things like that, we got a good plan, but it doesn't cover it all. And we got to be able to allow our rules to handle those things that show up in the game that we haven't prepared for, because there always will be that on offense, defense, and special teams. But then we also need to be able to make adjustments on the sideline too.
Do you think there's such a thing as a confidence boost for an offensive coordinator? Because you spent a lot of time this offseason talking about kind of idea spread and Ricky evolving. And I think with more experience, more opportunities, you're kind of going to see that growth. Do you think Saturday could be that for him?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at our first game, Ricky's first game calling in the Fiesta Bowl was phenomenal. So yeah, I think every year Brent Pry gets better. We should. Every year Ricky gets better. Every year I hope to get better. That's all the position coaches. That's the coordinators. That's the players. And does experience count? Yes, no doubt about it. Because obviously whenever you're going through something for the first time, there's challenges that come with that. So it's no different than what you guys do professionally. You got a tough job, and you're much better in year 3 than you were in year 1. You're much better in year 10 than you were in year 4. So yeah, the experience counts. Now, what that game this past Saturday meant, I'm not sure, but it was a really positive step for our entire organization.
You've said that Friday's performance was one of the most complete games you've seen since you've been here. When you have time to look back at that film and you're able to break things down more, is there one overarching theme or one reason why you can point to this kind of being that game? Was it just a good week of practice? Was it Sean? Was it Ricky? What really helped?
Yeah, I guess that's when you make that type of a statement, it's not one thing. It's so many things. I thought the guys were ready to play. I think we've created really good depth to keep guys fresh. The most important stat you have is scoring offense and scoring defense, and we obviously did well in those areas. Our special teams has been pretty clutch all year long, and we're going to need them to continue to be. We're seeing a lot of guys play, and a lot of guys play at a high level. I thought we handled the noise well. I thought we handled our guys look fresh and fast, so I think we handled the bye week well. So Josh, I think the reason why I felt that way is not because of 1 or 2 or 3 points. I think it's all the factors.
By this time next week, James, we may know the kickoff time for the whiteout game. I think a lot of fans are worried or don't want it to be a noon game. I know that's been talked about a lot in the Big Ten this year. Do you have any preference on what time that game will kick off?
Yeah, the earlier the better. I like them. If I can get it at 11 a.m., so then we can play the game, and then I can go hang out with my wife and kids for a few hours. I can tell right now, just people are watching this, just going crazy. Yeah. So, Sandy, can we do 11 a.m. games? Are we even allowed to do that? No. No. I mean, obviously, I honestly do think that coaches like the 12 o'clock game. Especially if you're the away team. And you got to travel. We didn't get back till 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got in bed, it was 5. I was out recruiting. All day long. So the away games are tough. I remember, Monday Night Football in the NFL. Everybody loves Monday Night Football except for coaches. I remember getting back at 5 o'clock and walking right into the office and not even going home. I can't make any announcements at this time. Obviously, all my focus is on Purdue anyway. But we'll be happy and we'll embrace whatever time they say the game is. And I know our fans will as well, because our fans, I've been noticing it a lot lately, our fans are getting more and more excited about the 12 o'clock games because we're embracing the breakfast tailgating. And then we're embracing the fact that it leaves us much more time to tailgate on the back end. So it's really a positive. It's really a win. So I've been noticing that all over social media. Chris has been showing me that we're starting to kind of flip this thing. Our fans, in some ways, prefer the 12 o'clock games. That's why this place will be sold out and rocking right after we finish our breakfast burritos.
Anything else for Coach? All right, thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Robert Windsor will join us momentarily.